Welcome, everyone. This is the Embodied Living podcast, and today I'm really delighted to speak with Soumya Karkera, a life coach for children and parents. And Soumya, as a parent herself and as a practicing well-being professional and previous social worker, has had the experience of working with children and families for the past 16 years. Most of her work with children is focused around helping them to explore and find tools to equip themselves with life skills that will help navigate the world and their lives with resilience, optimism, and self-belief. Her work with parents is in helping them to feel more confident in their parenting journey, find new approaches, tools, and techniques to build a sustaining connection with both themselves and their children. So I'm delighted to get to speak to Soumya because there's lots of aspects of our work that go together and overlap. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mira. Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here.
It's my absolute joy. So shall we dive straight in and let's talk about what it is really that you do? How does coaching help parents and children? What difference is this work making in their lives?
With the coaching service, I offer children and parents to explore tools and techniques that they can use for the rest of their lives. Like, say, for example, current children that I'm actually seeing through my coaching service come because they lack certain amount of confidence, or they feel there is there is anxiety, or they have fear of exams, or certain things are happening, some life shifts or changes that they're unable to talk about or express emotionally. And this is when they come to the sessions and they explore their voice and how to stand up for themselves. What are some tools and techniques that they can identify within themselves, or they have used in the past, or it could be something new that they need to learn to help them in an anxiety situation whilst in the playground, or when they're doing an examination, or when they're facing certain setbacks in their life. And what mostly interests me is that they can learn to explore these tools themselves, and when they do it, they keep it for life. They practice it again and again, and they've not only found the strength to find it within themselves, but also they have unlocked something about their mental health, and then they become advocate of their own mental health. And I think this is the key message that I want to give them, that they are a storehouse of power within themselves, and the resources are within them, and that parents or teachers or whoever that they are very close to, they can be supportive, but they are not available on all situations to help them immediately. That they have to learn to do themselves. So it is all about helping them to help themselves, um, and then build resilience and move forward in life. Because I found all those tools at the age 30 or 25 or 40, and I want them to be able to find that much earlier in their life, and be equipped with these. So that's where the coaching service comes in to help, or how it actually benefits them.
So many questions. I mean, it's beautiful to hear you talk about essentially a child coming to you in a experience of anxiety or fear and feeling like maybe they can't quite cope with whatever the situation is they're facing in their lives, and to go through a journey with you to really get, I mean, I can hear two aspects in that: to experience the benefits of working with the tools, and also in doing that, a real sense of empowerment. I really heard that
Yeah.
sounds like your orientation is about, I'm here to help, as you said, help you help yourself.
Yeah.
And do you feel, is this a different approach than what's been available for kids up until now? Is this something that you've learned or focused on? What brought you to really want to do it this way?
I think the reason why would be myself, and the entire 16 years of work that I've been doing. I don't see it as a different approach in itself, because I think it's slowly coming into the mainstream schools, etc. They're beginning to adapt this in some way. But for me, the why would be what happened to me. And when I was younger and when challenges were right up on my face and I had to face setbacks at age 17, I learned to do this myself. I had very little guidance or very little support, but something that came to me continuously was, what if I had somebody to go and talk about this? Then
At
there
that
would
time,
be.
you thought that, did you?
Yes, at that time, I was thinking continuously because school didn't have that provision. I had family members, but then always personal judgment and personal opinions would come in the way. And as a young child, you're going through all these turmoils in your life, and you want somebody to be able to help you and guide you. And all I had asked at that time was somebody to be there to listen to me, just listen and not judge. And I think that's all I have carried to my work. That's exactly what I give them. I give them the space to talk. There's no judgment. And when they talk, as they talk, I hear, and then I pull things out and I allow them to reflect. And I tell them, okay, we found an answer there. You've done this beautifully. So are you struggling with the emotion, or do you not know what to do? And then most of the time they know what to do. They just want to be heard and
Mm.
seen. And that's exactly how I felt when I was a child. I had the whole world around me, but I felt very unseen and invisible and not heard. And in our daily lives, children feel this. And in my 16 years of journey that I had with schools and working with all these parents and children, I've regularly, repeatedly felt this. And that's what I bring to the session. It's that 1 hour of space,
Mm.
safe space for them to talk, for them to express themselves, for them to be seen, for them to be heard, and to get an non-judged view about another adult who then guides them gently and says, okay, there is no right or wrong here, it's fine, that's fine. That's exactly what happens in the sessions. And for me, I think that is very strong and that is empowering. And I see kids having an aha moment or just that shifts happening. They just feel that relief. I've got it out now. Somebody knows about it and they're here. I can trust them. So it's all about these. And I think it's very, very valuable.
And how else, Soumya? So you talked about Samya, you talked about your own journey of healing and recovery. I'm assuming it's so fascinating, isn't it? Like many of us in this field and in this work come to it because we had to figure things out for ourselves, and then we did, and then we're like, oh wow, this is amazing, I want to help other people do this. What else influenced the the culmination, like where you are now and how you approach your work alongside your own journey? What did you discover that really took you to where you are now and how you approach this work?
There are quite a few things really, because when I started at 16, I knew then that this is what I wanted to do. So I pursued studying social work. Somehow I was lucky, got into a college and studied the entire aspects of it. And then was very focused on working with children and families. And then came to England and had the 16 years of wealth of experience to explore in this field. But at the same time, during that time that I was a child, I also knew my parents needed help. It's not just me, my parents needed that help too. It's because they were caught in this generational cycle of the society, right? And I was continuously told that the society, you shouldn't do anything that brings a defamation to us. You should do this or you should do that. And I saw them so scared of the society that they did not have a voice. They didn't know what being authentic was. And they said to us, stay small, don't dream big. Like they gave us all these things like good education and wanting to spread our wings. But at certain times, they also cut our wings and just kept it in a box, and they said, stay small. And the society is watching you. So I think it's how my parents did not know how to ask for help. And they thought being a parent is all about knowing everything from the day you become a parent, and that asking for help is not okay. And they never did. And I feel very wholeheartedly, even at that time, if they did ask for help or if they reached out, things would have been different. They would
So
have had a shift.
what do you think blocks parents from doing that? Yours and other parents included.
Judgments, being judged by the society. I think the conditioning that when you are a parent that you must know everything. If you ask for help or if you reach out for help, that's not okay. That in some ways says you don't know how to be a parent. There is a lot of conditioning that goes on, and what they generalize as normal, you must know everything.
Right.
So I think as I started to work more in the 16 years, and I had left my country, India, and come to the Western world, and I started to see the same things,
Mm.
the same conditioning, maybe not so much society, but conditioning that's been traveled through generations, like self-worth, that's low self-worth, that's been carried from mom to the child and then to the next cycle. And I started to see that more patterns as I started to do my recovery work. And I think that's exactly what brought me to where I am today.
So you've got
um,
my attention with that, Samya. Is that why? And tell me the reason if it's something else, but is that why you work with parents and kids together as well?
yes,
So
yes,
tell me more about that. How do you see that? That sounds like that's something that's quite, looking at the system of the family, it reminds me
yeah,
of, and, you're talking
yeah,
about that transmission. So talk me through a bit more what that looks like to be working in these processes with the child and with the parent.
yeah. It's very fascinating because it is family dynamics, right? And we can actually pinpoint it to family, mom, dad, children, and one unit. So basically, as I see the work happening now, I see the children come to me, and then as they start talking about their problems, and then when I allow the parents to come on board and talk about things, there are triggers. And when I ask them, who are you without this thought or, without this trigger, they'd often say, oh, I'm so and so, this so and so person. So where did you get this from? From my childhood, or from my mother, or from my parents, or from my grandmother or grandfather. And then you see that cycle continuing. I have a daughter, and when my daughter was 3 months old, and I saw triggers in me that were similar to my mother's. Now, I was not that person. I never wanted to be. I know my mom had issues in regulating her emotions. And at that time, she did not reach out for help, for she did not know where to go. And I really understand this as I've grown up and did my own work. But when my daughter was 3, and one day she was really struggling with her emotions, I reacted. Being a professional at that time, I knew that's not something I should be doing, but I couldn't hold myself back. And I think that was a moment in my life where I had to reflect so much, because I thought being in the social work industry or the well-being industry, I had all the tools in the world, and now I was all zen, and that triggers were not going to come back again. But it had, and it really threw my life upside down, because that's not how I wanted to be with my child. And I think that's where all the work started back again, to understand my own triggers and to understand the cycle as well, because my grandmother had passed it on to my mom, and my mom had then passed it on to me, which is an automative response, not very conscious at that time. but I'm glad I caught it and started the work. And then I would have unknowingly passed it to my child as well, because though she was 3, she was taking it in like a sponge.
So talk me through that, Soumya. For those that are listening that might not be as familiar as both you and I are, what does it mean to do this work, to do your recovery work? And what was it like when you were seeing that happen in yourself when your child was 3? And what did you start to do that changed things and shifted things? If you can talk me through kind of practically, what would that involve? What did it involve for you?
So for me, it was basically identifying the trigger. So started with, am I really triggered with her screaming and shouting, or do I want to have control, or do I not know as a parent how to manage her tantrum? Is that what it is? Is that what I am reacting to? I think that's where the questioning actually started. And then I realized, oh, well, I don't know how to manage my emotions when my child is being so full of tantrum. But she's 3, that's okay, that's what she does, right? Why am I feeling so caught up in that? And why am I being so reactive to a 3-year-old for whom that behavior is normal? And it started from there. And then I reached out at that time, and I started writing a journal, because it started to trigger my anger issues as well. And I could see my mom at that time, when we were little, she was very angry, and she would project her anger on us all the time. So for me, it was asking, am I angry about something? Am I angry about something that happened to me when I was a child? Because when things happened, that was trauma. I mean, there was no control over what was going on, and you had to just deal and cope with that situation then and there. So for me, it was just basically looking at, have I got to release something? And the trauma work was just only getting to start hearing and things coming out and all of that. So I personally reached out to a theta healing course and a session, basically figuring out, I had all the tools, so I knew what to do at that time, but there were inner triggers which would just come like that with the child. I needed to diffuse them or have a greater understanding. With the whole theta healing session, it started to take me deeper. It took me back into my childhood, identifying things that I was not able to control, talk about it, shut those chapters. Like, I can now cope with it without feeling triggered. That's the transformation. I mean, things can come. My daughter is 12. She's doing things that a 12-year-old should do. Nothing triggers me. I can respond to it as a parent, be in the present, not shift back into the past or be taken into the future, not being held captive of fear and anger and switching to back and forth, right? That is a transformation. And
Beautiful.
for me,
You mentioned, Soumya, in your materials that you sent me prior to us chatting today, that um, something that you've learnt is that parents often need help almost more than the children.
yeah.
So can you talk us through that a little bit more as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always the case, because children come to the world being very pure. They don't learn this. They see what the parents do. Like I take examples from my own life, from my own closest family. Going back to my parents, if they were offered support and guidance and non-judgmental, listening or opinions, so they would have been different. They were so scared of the society at that time that all that they wanted to do was just follow the norms, and don't shame us, don't shame us, right? And that felt like a huge responsibility. We had three siblings on our shoulders. We had to study medicine or engineering to keep their honor.
Of
We
course,
had
good
to
Indian
do
family, yes.
had to do that, and we had to do this to hold their honor. And this big monster society was sitting in our home every day, and there was nobody to tell them, look, just listen to your kids, right? They have a voice, and they can actually tell you what they want to do. They're not going to let you down, but if you do think they are, then they might do things to disappoint you or upset you. And today, when I come into sessions with parents and when I start working with the kids, I see that there is a part of parenting that needs to be worked at as well, because they're all carrying. So this is interesting to see, I'm also attracting a lot of young parents who have migrated. They are first generation migrants like me in different parts of the Western world. And they all have similar stories like me, similar. And I'm finding it really interesting that their reactions to their children is because what's happened in their childhood. So I show them the mirror, or I actually try and tell them, look, this is your child, and they're 16 or 13 or 14. What they're going through is normal. But if you remove yourself from that and take away yourself from that and see yourself as a parent and what happened before, what do you see? That things are coming up, and then the story starts. They need so much work because everything's bottled up and it does not come out. It feels like they've not been heard, the work's not been done. And that is a projection to the children. And it's an ongoing battle, because it's about control. It's the power shift. It's basically, I don't know what to do with my emotions. You're the most safest person, you're most consistent in my life, so I'll throw it to you. And you are my child, so it's your duty to, like, really, take it,
Mm,
right? And this is the unseen, or this is the real unseen world thing that appears in the family dynamics. It's the power. I'm the parent, you're the child, so you can take it. It's your job. You've come out of my womb, so it's your responsibility to really take all of these. And it's the pain that they have gone through. And yeah, I think that's what I see a lot. The trauma just carries on and carries on. And if we don't identify that, we will just pass it to generations to come. So for me, it became very important that I don't pass it on to my child, because she'll be the fourth generation. And I don't tell her, don't play big. I never tell her, play it small, be who you want to be. That was another thing. We were never allowed to explore who we are. We were lucky we did that in our own way. We rebelled, or I rebelled in whatever way possible. And we broke all the rules of the society, and we are here. But I think it's just about breaking that cycle.
it sounds
Often,
like you're offering a way to do that with a little less rebellion needed, perhaps, if everybody's waking up, if parents and children are coming together. It must be really exciting. So, can you give us an example of, like, a really concrete example of what a transformation would look like in a family that you've worked with when this happens, when both parent and child come, or parents and children come in and work with
yeah,
you? What was it
yeah.
like? What did you do with them? What happened after?
I can give a very strong, empowering example of a child and parent that I've been working for 12 months now, and a little bit more, because some work takes more time than others. So here, this is a classic situation of mom who's gone through a lot of abuse herself, trauma, and then being forced into a marriage that initially looked okay, and then things started to going downhill. The child has noticed and observed and taken everything into it. And then the mom then decided to separate, which was really difficult at that time, but finally made her decision on her own without having consistent support from her family members. And then at this time, the child started to see me. The child came first. The presentation of the case was, my child is very angry, very destructive, don't know what to do, and is an embarrassment for us, right? And at that time, the child was about 10 years old. The child has taken in everything that's gone on, hasn't spoken about it. The display of emotion is anger and destruction. That's because they're not able to really regulate or talk about what's being happening with them to any member of the family, because there's so much judgment. You're a bad child. You're angry. The labeling was angry and destructive. And as we started doing the work with the child, there was more and more occurrences of, my mom needs to work too. Me picking up that your mom needs work, your mom needs work. This is you, and you're 10, and you're doing everything that you can do in your way, in your capacity. So I invited the mom to come on board. And then we started to talk, and then it started to come out. This is how I was treated. This is what happened. This is what happened in my marriage. And I took the steps. So the first step for her was to come out of her marriage, which was a significant step that empowered her. But still, there was so much trauma and baggage that she was carrying that she didn't know how to communicate to this child. And there were often conflicts, like they literally could not stay in the same house without having a conflict a day. She was a single child. So the goal was for the parent and the child to have a very harmonious relationship, to understand each other, for the child to not go through the same things that her mom had gone through. At this point, mom was beginning to have a turnover, and with me talking to her and providing the space, she was accessing the space to talk about what happened. I was able to show to her, look, this is your reaction to the child, but this is actually projection from your older trauma. This is not because your child is doing something. She's 10, you need to expect her to do this. But this reaction you have, that's going to split and bring so many conflicts, because this is something you need to confront with your own parent, not with your child. You're mixing the two things. And then her work started with her parents, which I'm not involved. I don't do the deeper work, but I obviously show this is the reaction that you have to the child. We need to change this parenting approach. Instead of you yelling and shutting her down, you need to co-regulate in this situation. You need to be empathetic to her and come to yourself from a place of self-compassion, right? And self compassion to your child. So you use this moment as a teaching moment, not a moment to shut down and teach your child that you need to avoid your emotion when things go wrong, because that's not okay. That's what your mom did to you. So you don't have to pass it on to your child. There
And
is
Soumya,
something
do you do that together? Like, are the kids and parents together doing this work and practicing together, or do you work with them individually? How does that look going through these processes?
It's very flexible at the moment, because the child first works with me on their own space, then the parents work on their space, obviously based on their consent. And if I find a situation that I need to bring them together, I'll bring them together like this, and I'll allow them to talk. This is the only mediation that I do, but it's often helping the parent. But what I also do is I teach the tools and techniques to the parent. So the child or parent sees me for 1 hour in 2 weeks, for the 167 hours until I see them next. The parent has the techniques and tools to reinforce to the child and to work on themselves. So, like I said, it's a very flexible structure at the moment. I'm still exploring what might work really well, but this seems to work well if I want to bring them together. It does. So I've kept it really fluid at this point of time.
Beautiful. So it sounds like, and can you tell us what happened with
Oh,
the mother and daughter?
amazing. Mom's finally got the divorce. The child now looks at the whole divorce as an empowerment for mom and for herself, and a break of the cycle that carried on for generations in the past. The child is able to regulate her emotions, does not bottle it up anymore. She has a journal where she writes everything. She talks about her anxiety that's been caused because things that happened when she was little, and her mom and dad were not really, on the same page, and what she's observed. So all that toxicity has come out in the sessions. She asked me questions, she asked her mom questions. Mom's really able to co-regulate, hold the space for the child to talk about things that's going on. Mom's really confident about her own emotions and talking about it and holding her boundaries as well. Even the child holding her own boundaries. Like we did the work with the mom and the child, right? I did not work with the rest of the family members. So it's also important, how do you hold your boundary when certain other family members step into it? So they've both learned how to hold their boundaries and say, hey, you know what? No, just I'm not getting involved. I'm stepping away. I'm not getting into this conversation, or having their own voice to advocate for themselves, especially the child and the parent. And the labeling has gone. So the child, it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hit me, right? So the labeling is not there anymore. So I think
Beautiful.
it's a very symbiotic coexisting space, which,
That's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. And thank you for sharing that story with us. And yeah, I'm really hearing, Soumya, in the things that you're, a lot, I mean, a lot of other questions. Maybe we'll have to have another chat in a little while as well, because I've got so many more things I want to ask you about culture and intergenerational stuff, like really fascinating your own background and that of your clients. And we're going to come to an end shortly. So on that topic of you exploring the different types of sessions and different ways of structuring to best suit each family and their needs, how can people, so we got two things here. How can people get to know more about your work? And I know you had mentioned that you'd like to offer something as well to people who are interested.
yeah,
So if you could talk us through those two things.
yeah. So, how can people get to know more about my work? I'd like to say that it's only year two of starting all of this. So, I'm still new in the business world. So, that's a learning curve for me. But you can find lots of content on my Instagram page called Being Me, Loving It, and on my Facebook page. I'm still trying to get things on YouTube. I've only just started to do YouTube, videos where I'm sharing some content as well. That's the only space that you can access me, get in touch with me, and that's about where you can learn about me. Now, to have an offer, I offer a 60-minute free exploratory chat to anybody who wants to find out more about coaching, more about what I do, how I do my sessions, etc. But it's also an opportunity to um, find out if coaching is for them. It's not for everybody. There are many different ways and mediums to access help, but I'd like to offer the 60-minute session for parents to come and explore what their issues are, have a chat with me, get in touch with my energy, and then basically figure out if coaching is for them, and see if my style and work ethics just really balance and touches them really. That's my offer.
Wonderful. So I'll put all of that information, the Facebook, the Instagram, and a booking link. We can pop that in for people if they're
Yeah,
interested in getting to
yeah.
meet you for an exploratory call. And before we wrap, is there, one thing that you would offer to, either the child or the parent, this kind of sitting in a desperate or anxious or fearful situation right now? What would you want to say to them?
I'd like to say the whole I'd always said this, like from one butterfly to another. What it means is the butterfly only emerges after it's gone through that traumatic phase of being in a cocoon, right? So if you think that you want to emerge as a beautiful parent, as a butterfly, or the child you want to see as a butterfly, you have to go through that process of trauma, that cocoon, where it really takes a long time. And if we try to cut it open and then say, okay, I want to release you and try to help you and do all of that thing to see the beautiful butterfly come out, it's not going to help in any way. So whether you are a parent or the child, we have to go through that journey from the larva to the pupa to the cocoon, and then that's where the wings strengthen, and then finally the beautiful butterfly emerges. So I'd like to really help you, or have this reflective moment of where are you in that journey of becoming a beautiful butterfly. Are you a larva? Are you stuck in that cocoon where things are happening and it's also stressful and pressuring, and then you see a butterfly at the end? Are your wings strengthened yet as a parent, so that you can offer yourself fully to your child? This is one the message that I like to really pass on, just reflecting where I am in this journey and how could I be that beautiful butterfly.
It's a lovely image. Well, it's wonderful to meet your gorgeous butterfly self and to hear about this fantastic work. And I'm sure if anyone takes you up on that offer, they won't regret it. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Absolutely fascinating as always to talk with you and share ideas. And thank you for your time today, Soumya.
Thank you so much, Mira. I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much.